Hello everybody, this is Mr. Kimmel with another screencast for Life Science. In this lesson, we're going to learn about the different types of cells. Recall that all living things or organisms are made of cells. It's also good to know that some organisms are only made of one cell, like this amoeba, shown here. All organisms are made of one of two main types of cells. The first type is called a prokaryotic cell, as shown on the left. The second type is called a eukaryotic cell, as shown on the right. Let's learn more about these cell types. Here is a prokaryotic cell, one of the main types of cells. It is a very basic, simple cell with only a few parts. Bacteria are this type of cell. They have a plasma or cell membrane that is surrounded by a cell wall, which is surrounded by a protective capsule. Inside is cytoplasm, which is a jelly-like substance that fills cells. DNA and ribosomes are found in the cytoplasm. DNA is the genetic material of the cell, and ribosomes are the tiny organelles that make proteins for the cell. Notice that there are no nucleus in the cell. Prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus or many organelles. Outside of the cell are small projections called pili or pili, and a long whip-like tail called a flagellum. This is a diagram of a typical prokaryotic cell. All look like this. Another fact about prokaryotic cells is that they are much smaller in size than eukaryotic cells. Here we can see a more accurate depiction of their sizes relative to each other. Second main type of cell is a eukaryotic cell. This type of cell is larger and more complex. It has more parts, such as the cell shown here. While bacteria are prokaryotic cells, all other living things are made of eukaryotic cells. Some of the parts of this cell are the same as or similar to the prokaryotic cell we just saw. The outside of the cell is surrounded by a cell membrane, also could be called the plasma membrane. The cell membrane functions to protect the cell, and it controls what enters and leaves the cell. On the inside of the cell, we find a jelly-like substance called cytoplasm and many different organelles. One organelle is the nucleus. It houses and protects DNA. It is generally in the center of the cell, but not always. Ribosomes are the tiny-like organelles that build proteins. Next is the endoplasmic reticulum, also called the ER. It looks like a ribbon that is folded on itself. It is always near the nucleus, and it functions as a pathway for molecules to move around. Notice how some of the ER has ribosomes on it, and some does not. Areas with ribosomes are called rough endoplasmic reticulum, or RER. Areas without them are called the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, or SER. Mitochondria are an important organelle because they make energy for the cell. Golgi bodies resemble stacks of pancakes. They package materials, such as waste, in vesicles, which through the cell. Vesicles are just small, round organelles that carry materials through the cell. Vacuoles are also small, round organelles, but they specifically store water for the cell. Lysosomes are small circle-shaped organelles that help break down any waste to get it out of the cell. Some cells have projections that they can use to help them move. A flagellum is a long whip-like tail that helps the cell move. Cilia are short, hair-like projections that beat in unison to move the cell about. Talked about the two main types of cells, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. But there are also two types of eukaryotic cells, animal and plant. The cell you just learned about was a typical animal cell. Let's look now at a plant cell. Here is a plant cell. It is still a eukaryotic cell, but it has some similarities and differences with the animal cell we just learned about. It has a cell membrane like the animal cell, but outside of that is a structure called a cell wall. The cell wall is stiff and less flexible. It provides support for the cell. There's also cytoplasm and organelles inside the cell. Here we can see a nucleus, ribosomes, ER, mitochondria, Golgi body, and vacuole. Notice how it looks different than it did in the animal cell. Animal cells have a few small vacuoles, but plant cells have one large one. It looks like a balloon, but recall that it stores water. Also found throughout the cell are several green organelles. These are called chloroplasts. They are filled with a green pigment called chlorophyll, and these organelles are used in the process of photosynthesis. Let's review what we've learned about cell types. There are two main types of cells, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Prokaryotic cells are simpler and smaller in structure. Besides ribosomes, they have no other organelles. Eukaryotic cells are larger and more complex in structure. They have many organelles, such as the nucleus, mitochondria, and Golgi bodies. Animal cells and plant cells are both types of eukaryotic cells. Plant cells have the same parts as an animal cell, but they also have one large vacuole, a cell wall, and green chloroplasts. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.